and stuff like that. And so just come out and play.
CJ, I listen to Draymond especially, and this whole Warriors team, in 15 and 16, they were feeling themselves, but they were young and figuring it out still. Right. Now this is like a team of old Jedis or something, right? The way Draymond talks to me, I think that's right. This idea they didn't feel us. He took the pulse of the team and realized they need to feel us. Do you agree with that sentiment? Is he being wily and cagey here? And how should the Celtics handle it?
No, I think he's being his normal self. First and foremost, he wanted to make sure he established a presence out there on the floor, and it started with the very first possession. Al Horford was very comfortable in game one. He did whatever he wanted. He hit open shots. He got to line the ball up, seam the ball up. He was super comfortable. On the very first possession of game two, Draymond pressures the ball, gets a tie-up, forces a jump ball. He set the tone for the team, and I think they follow his lead. He's the energizer. He's the motor of the team in terms of energy, communication. I always say it, for good or for bad. He's going to be communicating. He's going to get into you, and he's going to challenge you. And I think he set the precedent for how the game should have been played.
But you don't think there's, to me, he seems like a high IQ player, right? But also just knowing what the team needs and when it needs it. In 2016, LeBron was able to bait him, right? Oh, one more T, and he's and this time, it just felt to me like Draymond has a better sense of how to agitate without crossing the line, or am I just making that up in my own head?
No, you're not making that up. I mean, you can see the video here. Obviously, he's learned from his mistakes, and it cost him a championship, essentially. They probably don't lose being up 3-1 with a chance to go home and win in front of their fans. I think he's learned. He's obviously going to continue to protest and yell at referees and push that line, but he understands that he's the key to this championship. If he's not out there, they're not winning a championship.
CJ, I've been on Steph for his play in the finals compared to his play in the regular season. Regular season, one of the, 5 or 10 greatest players you ever saw in your life. Finals, still a good player, but not the same level. But in game two, he rose to the occasion in a must-have game in the second half. Is that something new for him in the finals? Or again, did he show you something new in the finals in that second half of that must-win game?
He showed me something, but it's something that I've already seen in the regular season. I've seen him performing in clutch situations and clutch moments. I think, obviously, past teams were set up differently. He didn't have to do as much. Obviously, they had Kevin Durant for 2 championships. They didn't have him for 1. And he had a well-rounded team around him in which he didn't have to carry the load. It was share the sugar, 0.5 mentality. In game 2, they ran high pick and roll. He got downhill. He finished around the basket. He hit threes. He was super, super aggressive. He scored 29 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists in 32 minutes, sat out the whole fourth quarter, towel over his head, legs crossed, super comfortable. I think he's an MVP lock, finals lock, if they win this series based on his production, based on how well he's been playing. And I like his three-point attempts, right? 14 in one game, 11 in another game, super efficient, super effective. And JJ talked about it, 1.7 points per possession in pick and rolls in which they're in a drop. Boston will not be in a drop.
No. Yeah, you know what our strategy is going to be? We're going to give Steph some space to shoot. That'll be the thing to do.
Insane mentality, but I think they felt it out. The first game is a fill-out process. Magic Johnson talked about it. You kind of fill it out. You try to get one if you can. You go back home with a chance to protect your home court. If you're the Boston Celtics, you change up coverages. You throw a lot of different things at him and hope for the best.
So you say whatever you want. He had 34 in game 1, but was hitting.
Finals, it tips off tomorrow night in Boston, and teams who've won game 3 when the series is tied at 1 game apiece go on to win the series 82% of the time. Let's recap. Steph Curry leads all players in the series, 63 points through the first 2 games. It's the 3rd most points by a player 34 or older in the first 2 games of a final. He's a minus 105 to win the finals MVP, according to Caesars. Jason Tatum, he struggled, shooting just 18% from inside the arc, which is the worst 2-point field goal percentage through the first 2 games of the finals in the last 25 seasons. Third quarter's been the key in this series. Celtics have been outscored by 35 points in the third by the Warriors. Game 1, they came back. Game 2, different story. They got outscored by 21 points in that game 2. All right, for now, we welcome in our NBA analyst, JJ Redick. All right, so let's go back to Steph Curry here. He's eluded that typically strong Celtic defense in the first half. When you look at the tape, what adjustments can Boston make to hopefully avoid Steph from going off in their home court?
Well, I think it starts with their coverage. They primarily play drop coverage, which means the big is back. He's not up at the level of the screen. And Steph and the Warriors have scored about 1.7 points per possession on those plays. Just for reference, the best offense in the league is about 1.16 points per possession. So basically, Steph and the Warriors have eviscerated the Celtics on this play. But it gets trickier than that because against switches, against isolation, Steph has been effective. On dribble handoffs, Steph has been effective. In fact, if you look at the 3 most effective half-court plays for either team in this series, it's a Steph handoff, a Steph pick and roll, and a Steph isolation. He has just done an amazing job controlling this series so far against a great Boston Celtics defense. But I think you have to start by being up with that big in those pick and rolls.
Yeah, especially early and late in games. In fact, Curry second in the postseason right now in fourth quarter scoring. He's got a total of 117 points. All right, so the Warriors certainly need more bucket getters outside of Curry. Klay has struggled to help the cause. He's shooting just 32% from the field in this series. What are you seeing, being a shooter, as the root of his issues?
Well, look, there's something to note here, and that's that Klay Thompson in this postseason run has really struggled in the first 2 games of every series, and then after that has averaged 22 a game on 48% shooting and 44% shooting from 3. So he has bounced back in every series so far after a slow start. He's got to find a way to get some easy buckets. That's layups, threes in transition. When they do go to those post splits and they're cutting action, he is an elite cutter. So being able to get back cuts and face cuts and score at the rim, I think, is really important. It's not like Klay isn't capable of making contested shots, but in game 2, he really struggled. He was 1 for 13 on contested shots against the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I think you said it right, and it's really interesting, JJ, that after the first 2 games of a series, Klay averaging 22 points. So you're right. It seems like after the first 2 games, he starts to get hot and get it going. We'll see if it plays out again here in the finals. JJ Redick, thank you, my brother.
You always.
All right,
I feel like I got a lot of good looks. Some didn't go down, but I feel like I got a lot of good looks. We looked at the tape. Got some points of emphasis for next game, spacing, setting screens, etc. Just to clear a little bit more space out. But I feel like I got some pretty good shots that didn't go in, but I'll be ready for game 3. We just gotta, find ways to find space. We gotta set screens, find ways to get open, and then make quick decisions, stuff like that. So nothing we haven't seen before.
Turnovers are a big part of the game, especially when you see how many times we turned it over and how many points they scored off that. You just think if you could limit those turnovers, you could limit a lot of those points. The stat about, basically, we don't turn the ball over, we give ourselves a better chance to win. That's not rocket science. So it's just a matter of, doing that more often than not.
Now, as for the Warriors, they are 22-6 all-time when Draymond Green receives a technical foul in a playoff game. Draymond has already picked up 4 technicals this postseason. Warriors 3-1 in those games. So let's bring in Pelicans guard CJ McCollum. He joins us now with his insight here on the NBA Finals. So CJ, Draymond gave the Warriors, in his words now, an attitude adjustment in game 2 with his trash talk, his physicality. You faced him 35 times in your career. If you were on the C's, how would you help your teammates from falling prey to his antics?
I had no idea I played him 35 times already. That's crazy to think about. But I think it starts with the physicality. You don't want to get involved in the back and forth that he's going to display throughout the game. He's their vocal leader, their emotional leader, and that's how he makes his money, by playing hard, by being the engine and the motor for that Warriors team. I think you see the way he played that game in game 2. He was aggressive. He got a steal on Al Horford, basically got an active jump ball, and I think he kind of showed them the level of urgency they have to have in game 4 going forward and game 3 going forward. I think that'll be the biggest point of emphasis for the Celtics is to match his energy, to play hard, and to hit first.
The interesting thing is that the Celtics are 6-0 following a loss in the postseason. So what adjustments are you looking to see out of Boston to keep that perfect record intact?
I'm looking forward to seeing how they guard Steph Curry's pick and rolls. I think JJ talked about it earlier. He's averaging 1.7 points per possession in which he's in a pick and roll and they're running a drop. They got to get closer to the level. At times mix in traps, at times mix in hard hedges, get the ball out of his hands, make him as uncomfortable as possible. And lastly, focus on the third quarter. I've said it before, the Warriors are the best team in the NBA in the third quarter coming out of halftime. The adjustments they make are unlike anything we've probably seen. So if the Celtics can withstand that run that they're going to go on in the third quarter, they give themselves a great chance to go up 2-1 at home in the Boston Garden.
You know, the Celtics, they've won 5 NBA Finals win Game 3 after a series is tied 1 game apiece. CJ McCollum, thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
By the way,